YouTube vinyl community, Roger Daltrey fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about Roger Daltrey's brand new solo album from the studio, where you make albums, As Long As I Have You, released on Republic Records. So this happens to be the CD copy. It is released on vinyl as well, which I'll pick up at some point. There's a lot of reflection there. There we are. This is Roger's first totally solo album since the early 90s. It's been a super long time. He did an album with Wilco Johnson a few years ago that was pretty good. And I feel like this is like the next step in terms of like keeping that R&B sort of vibe going. And Roger wanted to make an album that sounded like stuff he was into in the 60s and then up through current day. He covers stuff on here all the way up to the 90s. And easily one of the best Roger solo albums there is. Personally, might be my favorite since his McVicker album in 1980. It's really, really good. So, long story short, he started recording this album like at least 4 or 5 years ago, basically after the Wilco Johnson album had finished up, and he wanted to do another album. And the stuff with The Who wasn't really happening. Like, Pete was working on some stuff, and then it turned out to be some solo things for a Greatest Hits album. And there's always been talks of Floss coming out at some point, this unreleased project from The Who, that may or may never not see the light of day, but in that time, Roger was hungry to do stuff, and in between touring with The Who, he was doing some of this. So while he was recording this album, he got struck down with a really bad case of meningitis, where he basically said he was almost dying, and he had to like just cancel a bunch of shows, or most of a tour with The Who, to get back in shape and basically come back to life. I mean, it really, really knocked him out. And he kind of abandoned the project for a little bit. Pete stepped in and was like, "Hey, I heard these demos. These are really good. You should finish this. Keep working on it, man." And Roger was like, "All right." And so Pete ended up playing guitar on like 7 of the 11 songs on this album. And basically just riffing on it, just kind of soloing over a lot of the songs and having a great time. And this album is just, it flows so well. Roger's voice is in absolutely amazing shape. The guy's in his mid-70s now. He still screams and growls and yells like he's a hungry 22-year-old, like on the club for the first time, showing his brand new band off. Unbelievable vocal performances from this guy, and the craftsmanship of the songs behind them, all the players, the musicians, the backup singers, the whole package is absolutely so much fun to listen to. I highly recommend this album. So with that, I present As Long As I Have You by Roger Daltrey. It opens up with the title track, which was a song by a guy called Garrett Mims in the early 60s. And this track is pretty close to that version. Because that original version is fantastic, and then you hear Roger's version where it's got a little bit more of a bite, a little bit more oomph behind it, and then of course Roger's vocals, which are just unbelievable. I mean, the way he just yells, "As long as I have you," I mean, it's so good. It's just amazing how he can still sound so excited and so energized and so determined to prove himself when he doesn't have to. But he easily has one of the best rock voices of all time, and it has not faded. He can still hit the high notes, he can still be delicate, he can still be sensitive, and he can just rock the hell out of every song he does. He's Roger Daltrey, man. No one can sing like this guy. So yeah, I really, really love the background vocals on this song, and through most of the songs. But from what I can tell, they're all sisters. The McCrary sisters are singing on the backup vocals on this album. But this song in particular, it keeps that R&B feel, but adds a little bit of a punch of a rock and roll feel to it. I love the horns on it, and for me, this song really gives off like a Town Called Malice kind of vibe by The Jam. Really getting that feel, but the powerhouse screaming, the yearning, the full of piss and vinegar behind his voice, it just sounds like a guy who is so stoked to be in a studio again. Showing to the world that he's got one of the best voices in rock and roll ever. I love this song. It's perfect. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. This should be a big radio smash. I wish they would play this on the radio. Easily one of Roger's best singles ever. So, highly recommended. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Track 2 on here, How Far, is by Stephen Stills on the Manassas album. And his version's okay. It's not bad. It's a little on the chill vibe. I really like Roger's version a lot better, I think. It's got way more soul and compassion behind it. a whole different element of like really yearning and telling someone you'd be there for them no matter what. And I think that just goes with Roger's ability to be a storyteller. Even the stuff he does with the Who, he's able to take a story that someone else wrote, in this case Stephen Stills or Pete Townsend, and inhabit that character's mind and really get into that character's state of mind and work with the emotions they're feeling and really understand them and really show them off. So to take a song that was, like I said, kind of chill, kind of laid back, and really give it a whole new life. The chorus is fun and bouncy. The production is super tight and clean, and I really love the acoustic guitars on this thing, but Roger just falls into this track so well. The chorus is super infectious, really fun to sing along to. The guitar work from Pete is really youthful. I mean, it just sounds spry and full of energy. So again, track 2 for 2 here. We're just like hitting them out of the park. Yeah, great track. Where is a Man to Go? So this song was originally by a country star named Dottie West, and then redone by Dusty Springfield in the 90s, and now Roger is doing it for this album. So the original song, Where is a Woman to Go? Just Roger's changing the woman to man part. And I really, really like Dusty Springfield's version. I mean, that was one of like her last hits before she passed away. I think that was on the last album she put out in her lifetime that she saw release in 1996, because I think she died in 1999, but she was already sick at that point. But there's a great video of her doing it on Jules Holland, if you find that online, but absolutely fantastic. Her voice is just perfect, but anyway, this is really cool. I really liked Roger's take on this thing. I mean, he puts a whole spin on it, and it really works. I even like the whole doo-dah, 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 doo-dah day throughout this thing. It's definitely got a Stax sort of Motown vibe to this thing. There's an inspiration behind it for sure, but it's got that ballroom sort of piano vibe. I love the beautiful background vocals throughout this track. The McCreary sisters just nail it throughout this whole thing. And they hit some peaks throughout the background vocals that are just like levels above singing, that sound really, really great, you know, like in conjunction with Roger's voice. So that combination of the harmonies, the combination of the soul and the power behind it really make for a really interesting listen. But it's just one of those things where, like, all right, I'm 3 tracks in and I'm loving every song, and Roger just sounds unbelievable. For a guy that's been screaming his ass off for 50 years, he's still doing it. Get On Out of the Rain. So this was another song that was done by Parliament in the early 70s, and it was called Get In From the Rain, I think, or something, Get In, Out of the Rain. And this is pretty faithful to the Parliament version as well. I really like Parliament's version a lot, because that's like early Parliament before they sort of melded into the more dancey Parliament that they would become, whereas Funkadelic was the more like experimental, psychedelic kind of stuff. But for me, this song in particular almost sounds like the Who could have pulled it off as well. If they'd done it back in like 1970, 71, around that Let's See Action kind of era, I can totally see them pulling this off. The Ringo-esque bell on the cymbal throughout this whole thing is great. The big explosive chorus is super fun. Pete slicing through on the guitars at one point during the soloing. Again, a song full of excitement, full of energy, full of just like gripping and grabbing your attention, just kind of like grabbing you by the head and saying like, listen to this. You know, hear how much fun we're having, hear how much we're trying to like convey a message. It's a pretty heavy song. And Roger does a great job of just showcasing those lyrics and putting a whole different life to them. And, you know, it's a song that still speaks true to today, I feel. So maybe that's why he did it, but great track. I've Got Your Love. This is a really interesting song. So this is a Boz Scaggs song it's buried on a 1990s Boz Scaggs album. So this, for me, this album also shows Roger's love of music and how much of a music fan he is. That it's not just the hits. Like, he's an album guy, and he's finding, or like random singles from when he was a kid. So he's finding these songs that he's loved or he's known for years, that are buried away somewhere around track 7, track 8 on some album somewhere, and putting his own spin on it. This version in particular is very, very close to the Boz Scaggs version. Really faithfully done. I love the vibrating guitar throughout this thing. I love the kind of shakiness to the guitar. Slow dance tempo is great, and I like that Roger takes it back a little bit. So you have 3 or 4 songs in a row of him screaming his ass off, and then he tones it down for a couple of songs. Which, if you see my other videos, that's how you sequence an album. You do it perfectly. You get those ups and downs, and it makes for a very nice listen. Um, but the background vocals from the McCrary sisters on this one are absolutely shimmering and beautiful throughout the whole song, especially towards the end where the build-ups come up. But they carry the rest of the song into the fade out. I really, really enjoyed that. Into My Arms. So this is a song by Nick Cave, and I have to say, for a guy like Nick Cave to be known as one of the, darker sort of, I hate to use like word like morose or something, but like his songs are pretty heavy, and they can be kind of not dark, but just like emotionally heavy, man. Heavy, To hear Roger do this song, to me, this is a darker version of a Nick Cave song, which I didn't think was possible, because Nick Cave songs are pretty just full of soul, but in like a lost sort of way. And Roger kind of takes that momentum and takes that feeling and makes it his own. But the vulnerability, the delicate tones that he hits, the sweetness in his voice, truly unbelievable. I mean, I love hearing Roger sing. He can scream, and he's amazing at it. But hearing him just like sing, and show a whole other side of him. Like I think of songs like "They're All in Love" from the Who by Numbers, or yeah, I mean, there's a handful of other tracks I'm thinking of too, from like Quadrophenia or even Tommy, like "See Me, Feel Me." Hearing him just like be really, really delicate with his voice, but still being so much control behind it, and convey a story that, again, like I said, he's getting in someone's mind, getting into the character of this character, into the brain of this character. The emptiness that weaves throughout this thing. There's a really reflective, introspective confidence that blends together throughout a very moving, sad piece. So there's so many conflicting emotions that happen throughout this track. That makes for a really, really fascinating experience to listen to. Heavy, man. It's heavy. You Haven't Done Nothing. This song is great. This is from Stevie Wonder's album, Fulfillingness's First Finale. I can never say that right. This is great. Stevie's version is absolutely a classic. I really like this one a lot. Real good heavy crunch in the guitars. Total blues rocker. The guitars really growl throughout this thing. Really nice heavy horns. Roger sings like he wrote the damn thing. It sounds like a Who song. I could totally see the Who doing this one. It's a super powerful track. The background vocals are great, and I love the sax solo at the end. So, classic song there. Out of Sight, Out of Mind. This one really caught me off guard. This might be one of my favorites on the album. This is originally done by a group called the Five Keys, based out of Virginia in the 50s. And they did this song back then, and they had a couple of hits throughout the 50s and into the early 60s, and came back for a couple things in the later 60s and early 70s, but mostly a 50s group. And their version's great, but I really like Roger's. It's definitely got that smoky barroom vibe. Like, you can tell, like, it's one of those songs that the band is playing, like, after their show has ended, and people are brooming the place up, they're picking up drinks, they're putting things away, they're cleaning up, the lights are coming up a little bit, someone opened up a back door to let the smoke out. And the band is playing a song for their own, for themselves, to like hear themselves in the room and see what it feels like, and just get a feel of the room after the energy has faded, and kind of a quiet, retrospective, sort of obscure track for themselves that they would appreciate for themselves, and not going out playing, the hits for all the people to dance to. Very cool track. I love that one a lot. Certified Rose. This is one of Roger's co-writes on this thing, and also the last time Pete appears on this album. Really not a bad song. It's really charming. It's got a nice sweet melody to it. It's really loving. It's full of heart. And the first time I heard it, because of the horn section, the way the horns kind of like lazily drip over this song, I instantly thought of Charles Bradley, and I was like, man, Charles Bradley would nail this song. Like, if he was still alive, he would totally nail this song. Rest in peace, Charles Bradley. So, yeah, Great track, really like that one a lot, and it just shows again that Roger can really write good songs. Like Here for More is a great song from 1970. You know, he can do it if he wants to. The Love You Save, this is by Joe Tex, and if you're familiar with some of the Quentin Tarantino movies, like this was used, I think, in Death Proof or Grindhouse or one of those. I haven't seen it, but it's in one of those movies. Another smoky barroom type song. Gotta be honest, this is probably my least favorite song on the album, but that said, it's still a good song. It's really enjoyable to listen to, but if I was doing a 10-track album instead of 11, that's the song I would have dropped. But still, nonetheless, enjoyable to listen to, but not my favorite. And then Always Heading Home, the other Roger co-write on this thing, is absolutely amazing. His vocals border on very delicate. He hits some notes that I've never heard him hit before in terms of just sweetness in his voice. Textures and tones and dynamics that he can hit that really showcase the breadth of what he can do with that amazing voice of his. Things I haven't heard him do in a long time, since probably the Who by Numbers and albums like that. Great choice for a closer. It really puts the central focus on Roger's voice. The music in the background is kind of just in the background. It's not meant to be the main subject of what's going on. But the song is a sad, powerful song, and it really makes for an excellent closer. And I like that it closes with a Roger co-write. I think that kind of seals the deal a little bit. But yeah, here's the back cover. So not a whole lot going on with the back cover, just the song listing there. There's the disc on Republic Records. And the booklet isn't too crazy. Whoops. See if I can get this out here. Although there's a couple of really nice pictures, so I'll show that off to you. It's a good shot of Roger. And I kept the hype sticker from the front, but it's got the words in there too, which is cool. But yeah, I literally cannot say enough good things about this album. Very happy that it's out because there hasn't been a new Who album since 2006 when Endless Wire came out. So and then the Wilco Johnson album came out 4 or 5 years ago. So to be able to get something like this in 2018 from one of my favorite groups, one of my favorite singers, and to have both Pete and Roger on there together, this is a smash hit for me. 9 out of 10, hands down. Hit 9 out of 10 all day. It's absolutely fantastic listen. Like I said, the only thing I'm not super sold on is The Love You Save, but that's just my personal opinion, and it means nothing to anyone. So if you dig that song, dig it, man. Like I said, I don't hate it. It's just not my favorite. But if this was a 10-track album, boom, 10 out of 10. The emotion on this thing, the fun, the electricity, and the care and the thought and the careful consideration of each song that was chosen from Roger's wealth of being a music fan. The sequencing is great. I think it's really well lined up. They jump you right in with a big track right off the bat. They close off with a really nice, soft, sweet closer. The musicianship on this thing is absolutely stellar and top-notch. It's just a great album. So I can go on to saying how much I love this thing, but really pick it up, listen to it, buy it, stream it, do whatever you gotta do to listen to it. You will not be disappointed by this thing. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This has been Album Reviews with Roger Daltrey. As long as I have you. And as long as we have Roger Daltrey, we've got good music. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. And that's it. Have a great day.